Welcome everybody to You Learn, You Turn. We got our CEO Hamilton Baden joining me as a co-host today, and our guest is Chris Lal. Please say it.
No, you say it.
All right, fine. Lalevee.
There you go. Wasn't that
All
hard, was
right. It's a beautiful name, and it reminds me of Jennifer Aniston's new products. Hers are called Lalevee, so you're Lalevee.
Yeah,
All
she
right,
named them after me. That was after our breakup, though.
There you go.
Absolutely. She wanted to remember you forever, Chris.
Absolutely.
So you are a business agent, and I'm going to let you tell what the acronym is, IUOE, and Local 825, as well as coordinator of Member Assistance Program. This is a peer program that helps members and families navigate through life issues like mental health, addiction, and suicide. We are so excited to have you on because we have a huge construction constituency client base, and we're really aiming to help that demographic. And you are on the ground, you have lived experience, and we would love to grab some of that from you today and let our listeners hear what all you've got going on. But Hamilton and I started this last week, and just a better way to get to know you real fast, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, if that's okay with you.
Sure, go ahead.
All right. When you were young, what did you want to be when you grew up?
A musician.
Yeah, I could tell because you were listening to some good music when we came on this morning. And Hamilton, you want to answer again, even though we did it last week?
Veterinarian.
Okay. And I was the same. What do you like to do for fun?
I like to go to the beach, like to ride my motorcycle, like to surf, spend a lot of time with my kids playing baseball, things like that.
Sounds like fun to me.
Awesome.
And lastly, what's your biggest pet peeve?
Stigma.
Love it.
Good.
That's good. All right. So, Chris, I don't want to read any more of your bio. I'd love for you to tell us what you're doing today to help the construction industry deal with suicide and mental health issues.
Sure. Started a peer group within Local 825. Well, the IUOE kind of put initiative in 2019, headed up by Kyle Zimmer out of 478 Connecticut.
Yeah, we know Kyle. He's a good dude, Chris. We like him.
Yep. Yeah, Kyle's great, man. He's like a brother to me.
Yeah.
And Kyle and I kind of joined forces. He was looking, he was doing a lot of stuff with the addiction end of it. I was doing things, kind of very grassroots mental health kind of stuff. And we joined forces. So really, what had happened was for 8 years, I was working in our dispatch office, which I basically did the intake of job companies that needed workers, send workers to jobs. Workers, when they were done with the job, would call in. And through that, you start to learn a lot about the people. Plus, I was in the field for a long time, and I knew a lot of the people. When you have somebody saying that they need a couple of days off, or you have a company calling and saying that somebody's not so right, or he's showing up late or something like that, and this person and you've worked with this person, something's wrong. So to pick up the phone after work wasn't that was commonplace for me, to call somebody up and say, hey man, what's going on? The company called, and of course you'd get the nothing's going on. And then with me, I had about a 45-minute to an hour ride home, and that would turn into, my wife left. I got hit with divorce papers. My kids falling off in school, my kids having problems, all this stuff that us as construction workers keep in, but yet it does affect us. We're on heavy pieces of equipment. When you say IUOE, that's the International Union of Operating Engineers. By trade, I'm a crane operator. When I'm picking heavy things up, coming across job sites, putting them in people's hands, things like that, I should be in my right state of mind.
Yeah.
And that's a very important thing. And you can take that into any level of what we do. We work out on the highways, we work on high rises, we work on bridges, we work on tunnels. So you start to get very present, which is where we turn into presenteeism. and being very present and having presenteeism can be unsafe. You're doing something repetitive. Go ahead.
Chris, we always say, like, if I come to work and I'm half there, I'm not going to hurt anybody. I'm going to talk like an idiot. No one's going to understand what I'm saying. You go to work and you're half there, you could kill somebody, including yourself. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. And I kind of contributed to. There's two things I can say. You're driving down the interstate, and all of a sudden you kind of like come within yourself and go, "Oh my God, like how did I get here?" Because you drifted off within your own thoughts. We've all done that.
Yeah.
That's presenteeism. We've all stubbed the toe on something that's been in our house for 5, 10, 15 years. We know it's there, but yet we kicked it.
Yep.
Because we're not there. So let's put that into the construction world. Let's put that into the guy that's walking along the highway, that walks outside the cone pattern. We put that to the guy on the 42nd floor of the high rise that walks past the taped line where the edge falls off. There's no guards there yet. Let's put that to the bridge, and so on and so on and so on. So
there's no room for error at all.
There's not. There's not. And it takes a lot for one of us as a construction worker to actually say there's something. And like with U-Turn, I know you guys deal a lot with the substance use disorder, which is a big part of this, because what happens is we self-medicate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We self-medicate, and that's what it is. Whether that's drinking, whether that's drugs, whatever our flavor is, that's what's going to happen. We're not proud of it, but that's what we do. With that, then we all of a sudden we realize, what's happening to us.
So Chris, where does your passion come from? Liz mentioned you have lived experience, and if you're comfortable, I mean, I've been in recovery for 11 years. I've self-medicated for 30 years before then. Like, are you comfortable sharing your story?
Yeah, 100%. I tell everybody my story. In the mid 90s, I was a young operating engineer. I was dealing with depression and anxiety. I don't know where it came from. I don't know why it happened. There was no benefit for psychologists or psychiatrists or anything like that. It was painful. It was hard to deal with. I had plenty of times where I thought of taking my life. And I was self-medicating myself. Yeah. I was, drinking heavy. When I say drinking heavy, basically a decent sized bottle of Jameson's, every day to every other day.
Oh, dude, I love that stuff. Jameson was the shit.
Yeah. So, I woke up one day and said, "There's got to be a better way," and it was about a 2.5-year journey, because finding a psychologist was hard. And finally, after finding a psychologist, I expected to walk in after 1 or 2 times, and then I'm yelling like, "This isn't working, dude. This isn't working."
Right.
Because I expect a quick fix, like everybody does.
How long did you struggle before you actually reached out to try to even get to a psychologist?
That's a great question, Hamilton, because I probably struggled about 8 months, and the average is 11 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
good for you.
Right. And the other thing was, it was expensive. It was expensive, and it wasn't covered. But here I am paying this money to a psychologist, and he said, "Well, I'm going to refer you to a psychiatrist. Maybe there's want him to talk to you about medications and things like that maybe could help you. And then along with talk therapy, I think this can work." And now I'm like, okay, so I'm going to be a pillhead. I'm going to show up on a construction site. They're going to give me a drug test. I'm going to fail the drug test, and I'm not going to tell anybody I'm taking antidepressant or any of that stuff. So they're just going to have me marked as a drug addict. So, I'm screwed. You know what I mean? I'm pretty much just screwed. That's what it is. But I told the psychiatrist what I did for a living. He said, "Listen, what we're going to do, we're going to start you on small doses, and everything that I'm going to do, I don't feel is going to impede or affect your work."
Good.
So, that's one thing that I tell people today, that there are so many things out there that will not pop on a drug test. And there are so many doctors that, when they know what they're doing, they don't mind putting their name on it, saying, "Listen, this is the issue. This is what he's taking. He's under a doctor's care." And that's all important stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, here I am, like, a week into the medication, and I'm speed dialing this guy, like, shit's not working, dude. It's not working. It's not working. I'm still drinking. I'm still pacing. I'm up all night. I get about an hour's worth of sleep. Hey, you got to calm down. It takes time. It's got to get through your system. And a trust factor, I believe, in the construction business is another one. Now I don't trust this guy. Yeah, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. And it took a couple of psychiatrists, call them cocktails, right? A couple different medications into one. Let's see what works. And the hard part is it's a kind of, let's try this and see what happens. If that doesn't work, we have to do this. And you have to be open to it, and you have to be patient. And when you're sitting there having full-blown panic attacks and feeling like taking your own life, patience is very, very thin.
Yeah.
So, I did it. I stayed with it. I did have support from my family. I did shelter myself away from everybody. I did isolate myself. There was times I know my parents or my brothers would call me just to do a wellness check. My sister-in-law tells a story of where I went out on a motorcycle ride, and my family's kind of spread out through the state of New Jersey, and I stopped and saw everybody one day, and I just went for a motorcycle ride, but they all figured that was my goodbye to everybody.
No, I was just getting ready to say they probably thought that. So let me ask you a question. Are you, and I don't care what the answer is, I'm asking you for a specific, are you sober now? Or did you get sober in that process?
I socially drink, Hamilton, but I'm not, I could sit down with a guy today and have a beer or two.
Yeah.
I don't need to have a beer,
Yeah.
I enjoy a cold beer after I cut the lawn.
Gosh.
So, we believe in whatever the hell works. The only reason I ask you that is because my story was pretty interesting. I struggle with the same stuff. I was on medication, lots of medication. And then when I got sober, it was actually the alcohol that was causing me all the issues. Once I stopped drinking, then I didn't need any medication. So I just didn't know if it was similar. It was interesting.
Well, sounds like your depression came first and then you drank because you were depressed.
Yeah, what seems to happen, and a lot of people don't realize it, is that the alcohol amplifies your anxiety. So it doesn't amplify your anxiety the day of, it amplifies it the next day. And once I started realizing that, I'm like, okay, so I'm good for like one or two beers with some guys, kicking it, chopping it up, whatever. But other than that, to get full on blasted, it's just not worth it. The next day, as we get older, it's hard enough to recover from that, just physically. But I don't like that feeling of being anxious and you kind of wake up. If you go out drinking hard on a Saturday, I wake up and I wasted all day Sunday. That's
Liz, Chris is saying we talk about a lot. It's really interesting. Is people have this misperception that if you are struggling with alcohol or drugs or whatever, that you may have to quit for the rest of your life. And we know that 40% of people that are in the beginning stages of this stuff can course correct. And that's exactly what Chris has done, which is, people just think, Chris, that if I'm struggling with alcohol, that's it. I got to quit forever. And that's what deters them from even having a conversation about it. And
sure.
Look,
and
I want to make it really clear. Liz and I had to quit. We went so hard that was it. But other people,
and it was the cause of all my problems. I was talking about that at a meeting last night. I was like, I didn't understand. I had all these issues, kept going to different doctors. But when I took the alcohol out of the equation, everything went away and everything got good. Can I ask you, you said that you didn't know why you were depressed. You didn't know why, and sometimes that just happens. But I wanted to see if you thought anything about the construction business, because you're a lift operator. Is there I'm not trying to stigmatize that at all, but is there sort of do you think there are more people suicidal and depressed in this profession? And if so, why? What would be the reason?
Honestly, in construction, when you really do the deep dive into it, it's the work-life balance.
Gotcha.
It's getting worse. It's getting worse and worse. Statistically, we're close to like 500,000 people short in the trades across the United States. What does that lead to? That leads to longer hours. That leads to time away from your families. That leads to missing your daddy-daughter dances, your kids' baseball games,
Yeah.
all those things. And, I look back at my life and I said, well, I didn't have that. But I understood it. My father was out making money. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have this. We live in such a now society.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't fault any guy that wants to go and do those things. You get it one time. I have 2 young kids. I get this one time.
Right.
And one of the things I'll say, and it's quite amazing in this industry. One of the things I'll say, especially with people in recovery or somebody going to get help, if you went to your superintendent and said, "Hey, I can't work overtime today. I got an AA meeting," you'd get, "Oh, Jesus," or,
Yeah.
"Hey, I can't work overtime today. I have to go to my therapist." You'd get, "Oh my God," but we got to get
Even
stuff done.
today.
Yeah. Now, if you went to
100%.
if you went to that same supervisor and said, "Hey, my son's got a varsity baseball game at 2:00," he'd be like, "Oh, go ahead, we got you."
Yeah.
If you said,
Amazing.
hey, can I split at 1:00? I got a hot date tonight. Yeah, go ahead, go do your thing. So,
But heaven forbid, take care of your mind, right?
No, well, don't take care of your mind and your body.
Yeah.
It's very, listen, I'm the kind of guy, I've had teeth pulled from a dentist and went back on a crane with cotton shoved in my mouth, and that's how we work.
Do you think this issue has got to be fixed from the top down? It sounds like
it has to be fixed from the top down. And when you start looking at things, I'm your run-of-the-mill construction worker, meaning you call a hiring hall, you get me, I come out to your job, I do the job, and then I'm done with you. You may have another project, you may not. What I've noticed is the construction companies do care, but that care is within that circle of their full-time main employees. A guy like me who's out there for 4 or 5 months, we'll just get somebody else. And the problem is we're so short on tradespeople. That's not the answer anymore.
Well, and
so,
Chris, the issue, I think of you guys and girls as more like veterans and first responders. Like, you never think about a construction worker and go, Chris is a weak dude. You're like, if I met Chris in an alley, Chris would beat my ass. He's badass. And you've been told that, and we all believe that. And so, unfortunately, all this shit is seen as a sign of weakness. I don't think it's a sign of weakness, but the population is, Chris has to go to his therapist. He's got a problem. Chris is going to go bang a hot girl. Chris is a badass. It's 2 totally separate things. And
that's exactly it.
And
that's exactly it. We could do that. We could go drink all night at the bar, roll into work the next day wearing the same thing we were wearing yesterday. And it's like, what a great guy.
And I look at the opposite way. The fact that Liz and I don't do drugs or drink anymore, the fact that you took care of your mental health, I think I think we're all 3 more badasses than we ever were when we were doing what we were doing. And we got to get the population to think that way too.
Yeah. And, when I talk to somebody and we go, I go down the road as a peer and I talk about going to a therapist and I talk about possible medication, I always get, well, you get on that stuff and you turn into a vegetable. And I'll look right at them and say, am I a vegetable?
Yeah.
And they'll stare at me because they don't expect that coming from me.
Yeah, good point.
One of the things I say is I'm effective because I'm a construction worker. I'm out here. I know what it is. I've worked it. My job as a business agent is a business agent. My members' assistants is my members' assistants. I'm just as comfortable behind the sticks of a crane.
Yeah.
I never expected to be in a position that I'm in. I'm just as well going and lifting beams onto buildings. It doesn't matter to me. I love this industry and that's what it is. But this industry has its problems and they need to be addressed. So if I can be a voice for that, if I can, at least if I could turn one person or help one person or send one person the right way, I feel that we're doing a great thing.
Well, you just hit the nail on the head, Liz. Sorry, I know I'm talking a lot. I'll let you go after
No.
Yeah, Hamilton just doesn't shut up.
I know, don't shut up. What you just hit the nail on the head. I always say this story. If you were struggling with addiction and I called you, we may bond and we may have a laugh, But you're not going to listen to me because I've never operated a crane. I've never, dug a ditch.
I mean, look at him. Can you imagine him on
Yeah,
a crane?
pretty boy like me, my nails would break, the whole deal. But if
Shoot
I
you
have
up in a minute, buddy.
yeah, if I have another
Go get me
crane
a cup of
operator,
coffee.
if I have another crane operator that struggles, calls you, and that's why we do what we do, is because you got to put like people together, and that's really the secret sauce of this.
Yeah, and I love, Chris, what you said in the very beginning when you were talking about driving down the road. At work, they would say, "Oh, nothing's wrong." Then you get on the phone with them on the way home. You were doing the first unofficial peer-to-peer support, right? And now that's your fit. Let's shift a little bit and talk about what you're actually doing on the ground to help these people and how you're
Sure.
using peer support, because we're big peer support people.
Yep. So, it was very amazingly how many people, when you go out there with it and you open up yourself and accept people, how many people will come forward and say, "Hey, I want to help. Hey, I've been in AA for 18 years. I'd like to help you. Hey,
Yeah.
I've been in NA. I want to help you. Hey, I'm this. I'd like to help." So, now you start to build this army, if you will, of peers, which is great. There's all kinds of people to talk to, and they're safe people to talk to. I may be the quote unquote coordinator, but there's people on the ground. Some of them are business agents, some of them are rank and file out there on our construction sites. They might not know exactly what to do, but we know how to get them where they need to be. And if it's a heavy lift where they need something as far as doctors or referrals, and it's somebody on a job site, they can call myself and we get everything into play. As far as that much, there's always the talking to the employer end of it. And I tell everybody, and I know both of you guys, both of you said you're in recovery. You think nobody knows. And I find that always funny that when I go to, and I don't mean fun, I find it like a little humorous that, well, I don't know if I'm going to have a job. I don't know what my boss is going to say. And at first I'm like, hey, we're going to see what happens. Now I'm like, dude, your boss knows already. Exactly. Your boss is going to be happy. Trust me. And they're like, there's no way. Okay. So
I think we had it.
Boss. Yeah. Hamilton's the boss. And I come up and say, hey, Hamilton, my name's Chris. I'm from Local 825's member assistance. Liz reached out to me. She needs to get in a program. She's been drinking too much. Hamilton's words are like, thank God.
Yep.
All the time. And now we have that conversation of, listen, it's going to be 28 days. She's going to have an IOP. Are you willing to keep her employed when she gets out? This and that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
She was a great worker, and she's going to be even better when she gets out. So it's a win-win for everybody. So when the contractor jumps on board, that's huge. And what I do on the ground, our presence is simply, we have an email set up, we have a phone number set up, and we have decals. An operator spends 8 to 10 hours in their workstation. That decal goes inside the workstation with our phone number. Somebody calls, you could take a picture of it. Everything's there. It's very, very private, very quiet. Nobody has to know that you called. Yeah. It's just there. It's that reminder. So, we could get calls that don't even pertain to mental health, addiction, or suicide. It could be somebody on a benefits issue, let's say, but at least we can direct them the right way, and that's just an easy fix. And with that number out, we started it, and it was very quiet, and all we really needed, I guess, was a pandemic to make us blow up.
Yeah.
We started hearing from wives. We had a lot of members with spouses that were in the nursing industry, and during COVID, working long hours. I remember talking to a woman like 11 o'clock at night. First thing, of course, with a woman, I'll always say, would you feel more comfortable speaking to a woman? I have a couple of women I could put you in contact with. But here was a woman that not seeing her kids, scared to death about COVID, seeing all this death, working 18 hours, sleeping in a hospital bed, starting over. on the other side of that, here's a construction worker trying to go to work, get the kids to go to school, get the kids ready because the kids were home at school. It was a crazy time, and we're going to feel the effects of this for a long, long time.
We are.
COVID's over. Hooray. No, it's not. It's not. It's not
actually back. No, I had it last
is.
week, and it's back.
Yeah.
It's worse than ever, actually,
Yes.
as far as the symptoms go. But you touched on something that U-Turn Health does a really good job at doing, and it affects the whole family. So we were really big into family support, family coaching. And I really hope that in some way, shape, or form, we can partner together and find some ways to work together.
Sure.
Like we said, we're not in competition. We're all here to help.
No.
And we have a soft spot for construction. We're working with the AGC. Hamilton, you could probably speak a little bit more to that. But before we go, Hamilton, you speak to that. I want to ask you about Oliver Anthony. Have you heard that song, Richmond Over Richmond?
Are you talking to me?
I was talking to Chris.
No, I don't.
You hadn't heard that. Okay, it's about the common man, being taken and having to pay all these taxes and not making anything. And then they had a rebuttal from another guy. Y'all got to listen to it. It's Oliver Anthony, Rich Men North of Richmond. You YouTube it and watch it. And then they've got a guy who came back with the response saying that you need to join a union. And I just wanted to get we'll have you back on and discuss that, because there's a real big debate going on about that. And you're union guy, so I wanted to ask your opinion on that. But anyway, Hamilton, who do we work with right now as far as construction?
Yeah, we work with the AGC. I've spoken at ARTBA, a lot of different ones. Kyle, we know Kyle really well. Do you know Cal Byer?
Of course I know Cal.
Everybody knows Cal.
I want to be Cal when I grow up.
I always tell, so you'll have
I'll actually be on a webinar tomorrow with Cal.
So tell Cal that you met Hamilton and Liz, and he'll tell you I call him Liquid Xanax. Because every time you talk to Cal, you feel just like this sense of calm and peace. And even though it's not such a thing as Liquid Xanax, I still call him that.
Maybe, actually.
Nah, Cal's a great guy. And, I'm sure Brandon Anderson, Mandy Kime, all these people with the AGC, great people that I've met, over the years, and me doing this, people that are doing great work. John Gall's out there. There's so many people that I consider friends, and that really just believe in this initiative to do better for construction. And Liz, to your point, yes, I'm a union guy, but this affects union and non-union, and it is not beneath me to go talk to anybody that's non-union. It doesn't matter. This affects everybody. This goes to even affecting the guys that are doing siding on houses when we talk about construction, because I'm out there on highways and big buildings and bridges, and I'm a union guy. What I could say is don't let that scare you. I will speak with anybody. With anybody. It doesn't matter to me, because a life is a life.
Yeah, that's right. And Chris, I'm gonna let Liz close this out, but what I'll just tell you is thanks for sharing your story. I think you're a freaking badass, not because you can operate a crane that can move freaking mountains, but because you're brave enough to share your story and help people. And I think that's what makes you a badass. And all those people you mentioned the same way. So awesome stuff.
I appreciate that, man. And you guys are doing some great work as well, and everything you guys are doing, and look forward to partnering up with you. I know our international has some of your information. I know you've spoken with Kyle, so Kyle's the one that would handle that over me. But and I know he's doing some stuff with you guys, as well as Goldfinch Health, if you know those guys. They're a bunch of great guys as well.
Yeah, he's been on the podcast, brand new one. They're doing great stuff. I just would end with saying thank you, echoing what Hamilton said. You're a badass, not because I do think operating heavy machinery is pretty badass, though.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It is pretty cool.
But sharing your story and giving back from your lived experience is something that I think is really, really badass. And I also want to remind you that your biggest pet peeve is stigma, and that is what you're doing. You are crushing stigma. So good for you. And we did talk to
Well, let
you
me just
early.
say to that,
Yeah.
Liz, like with the stigma thing, what really gets me is,
Mhm.
somebody that is, in recovery, they're in recovery bettering themselves. They shouldn't be labeled a drunk their whole life or a junkie their whole life. We could take this all the way to prison. Somebody that did their time
Agree.
and paid their debt to society, they're not a convict for the rest of their life. We don't know what they went through for their 5 or 10 years or whatever they did.
That's right.
Let them get back into society. Who are we to point fingers, right?
That's right.
It doesn't make sense to me.
Me neither.
And that's where stigma bothers me.
Yeah.
And it's personal. It's a personal thing.
Well, it's really funny. The stigma comes from people that as soon as they experience it, then the stigma goes away. You know what I mean? It's like, Kyle's a loser because he can't control his alcohol, but the second my son can't control his alcohol, now Kyle's a badass. It's hilarious when it hits close to home. Then your perspective changes.
It's interesting. A couple people that questioned what I was doing in the beginning, and it doesn't become real till they call me and say, "Hey, I think I need some help."
Yep.
Okay, with what? And let's take 2 years ago when you had what you had to say to me. I don't even remember that. Let's talk about right now. What's going on right now? My daughter's cutting herself. Okay, let's address this.
That's awesome. Not that she's cutting herself. Awesome the way you handle it. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Good stuff, Chris. Well, I hope that we can work together in the future. I know we will. And I just appreciate your time and all that you're doing to raise awareness.
No problem.
Stigma. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon, okay? And thanks everybody for joining You Learn, You Turn. Bye.